Joined now by Fox News Judicial Analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, and we're talking today about the City of Toledo parking ticket fiasco. And this law has been on the books since 1991, and now it's being used against the people here in the City of Toledo. From a judicial perspective, is it good in your eyes that it's being used now and that for so many years it's not been enforced?
Actually, there's a lot of problems with it being used, Sean. The first is that no one expected it to be enforced. And when the government has a dormant law, one that's on the books but it doesn't enforce, and then it wants to enforce it, it has to give people notice that it intends to enforce it. And where does that obligation come from? It comes from the Due Process Clause of the Constitution. So believe it or not, by suddenly enforcing this law without giving notice ahead of time, the City of Toledo is violating the Constitution. As well, as you no doubt know, and as most of your viewers know, the city charter of Toledo only permits police officers to give summonses or citations or what we commonly call tickets to anyone. By having administrative personnel or workers or refuse collectors doing it, the city is violating the city charter. And as well, by having these people come on private property without a search warrant for the purpose of giving what is in effect a criminal citation to someone without a search warrant, they're violating the property rights of the people of the City of Toledo. So this thing is dead in the water. And my advice to the mayor is that this be stopped immediately and that these tickets that have been rescinded, that have been given already, be rescinded.
Let me ask you this. What is the difference in legal terms when a police officer comes onto your private property and issues a citation as opposed to somebody from Streets, Bridges, and Harbor?
Well, a police officer is authorized by the city charter to issue tickets and citations, but even the police officer cannot come on to private property against the will of the lawful occupier of the property without a search warrant unless he's in hot pursuit of someone that's been violating the law or unless it's to save a life. But in terms of coming onto private property to ticket a car because of the condition of the driveway on the property, no one can do that. Not the police and not the city harbor people. In terms of using the city harbor people, as I explained, the city charter prohibits that, and the mayor knows that.
Okay, so let me ask you, in all your experiences and all your time in the judiciary, have you ever seen anything like this?
I've seen some strange things, Sean, but I've never seen one like this. Look, we are all familiar with the magnitude of the city's deficit, estimated as between $9 and $12 million in its annual budget. It's very obvious what the government is doing here. Politically and morally, it's dangerous for this mayor, who's subject to a recall anyway, and it's reprehensible morally for them to pick on innocent people in the use of their private property. They either need to find another way to raise revenue, or they should diminish the services that they're providing and the expenses that they're incurring, because this is just not going to wash in the courts. I can't imagine a judge, whether it's a local judge in the city or whether it's a federal judge before whom a constitutional challenge may very well be raised, siding with the city. I just can't see it happening.
Do you think we could be to the point where this could go to a federal judge and this could be hashed out there?
Oh, sure. I would think that a lawyer could file a class action. That's a lawsuit with one plaintiff representing all those who have been ticketed by the police before a federal judge, challenging the constitutionality of the city's behavior. And that federal judge, in my view, will stop the city from issuing any of these tickets until the judge has time to hear the city's argument and determine whether or not this is lawful. And then after that period of study by a judge, I'm convinced that that judge would find the city's behavior unlawful, and then he would or she would enter a permanent injunction, permanently enjoining the city from doing this.
So going back to using a law that was put on the books so many years ago, do you feel like there are higher-ups here in the city of Toledo that are abusing their power?
Yes, of course they're abusing their power. I mean, you have seen, and many of your listeners and viewers have seen, the distribution of this memorandum. It was basically a, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's how you're going to write these tickets. And P.S., our computer isn't even equipped for you guys to write the tickets, but we're going to show you how to write them anyway. Not only is the city abusing its power, but the city itself wasn't even ready, and its newly deputized refuse collecting ticket agents weren't even familiar with how to do this. This is a political fiasco and a constitutional quagmire, and the only way for the city to get out of it is to stop it.
So from your view right now, do you think politics and the judiciary here are being mixed in ways they shouldn't be?
Well, I don't know, sitting here in New York, the politics of Toledo, Ohio, but I do know the Constitution and I do know the laws. And the Constitution, for the reasons I've articulated, because no one knew this was happening, prevents the city from doing it. And the laws, because of the way the Charter of Toledo is written, prevents the persons other than the police from doing it. You can't just make up a law, and you can't just make up a policy on the come like that. It has to be consistent with the authority that created you, here, the city charter. It must be consistent with the due process clause of the Constitution, and it must basically be fair. These tickets issued by these refuse collectors on these people's private property meets none of those standards.
Fox News judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Sean.